Welcome back, YouTube. It's my second recording video. Hopefully today's goes a little bit smoother in terms of my memory not being full on my phone and having things a bit more coordinated. So if there's any noise in the background, I apologize. My gardeners are just doing their thing, and I'm limited on time today. So I'll just try and get through it. Just want to start out. It's so funny. I posted my first post on YouTube. I think I had 6 followers, and I think today, less than 24 hours later, I've got 20 followers and I think 39 views and some comments. So thank you for the community. If you support Global War 39 or know somebody else that does, please like and share with them so that others can be connected. So thank you to those people who have supported me so far. And I'm going to try and do a better job at making some eye contact today with the camera, learning how this all works. I've got some notes in front of me, and it's so funny. My dad was poking fun at me. I was telling him I'm going to be putting a YouTube channel, and anyways, the butt of the joke was like, son, like I know you're a crazy idiot, but now the whole world's gonna know. So anyways, I like to make fun of myself a little bit, so it's kind of my sense of humor, which is probably gonna come out quite a bit. So I like to laugh and have some fun, but I wanted to start out by talking about 1939, which is being redeveloped, and I first want to reach out to or acknowledge the original creators of this game. And Kurt and I, and taking this project on, we want to express that we actually love the game the way that it was. There were some fantastic things in terms of the German first attack. They had a double impulse, and the way the French boats were rolled for. And then obviously the Japanese sneak attack, the way that kind of plays out, which is a real strong Japanese player. They can do some real damage with that Japanese sneak attack. But I remember the first turn when Kurt did it, I was Allies and he was Germany, and I just thought it was so cool. It took us like 2 or 3 hours to get through it. I'm like, I just want to do it again. I want to go through this turn one again. So thank you to the original creators and developers of this game. You guys did a fantastic job, and it's an honor for me now to try and maybe revive the game or bring it back into the forefront of the community so that others can continue to enjoy it for more years to come. So that's what I wanted to acknowledge there. And also I have 2 other people that I haven't mentioned that have had a big role in this game, and they are wonderful people and absolutely fantastic, we call it Global War or Axis and Allies or BBR players, and 2 gentlemen that they're definitely the top of the class when it comes to skill and their knowledge of World War II history, and people to bounce ideas off of, and that's Gargantua and Hambone. So thank you to those 2 gentlemen. You've added a lot. Some of the ideas that are actually in this game, a lot of them have come from those 2. I've just been the person to facilitate it and sort of work out the fine details. But they've had a large role so far. So I want to say thank you to Hambone and Gargantua. I do plan on doing some kind of video with those as well, similar that I did with Kurt, just to kind of get their 2 cents of what's happened so far. And just to talk about, because I've had questions, 39, like, tell me a little bit about the game, and what I first want to say that I believe there's enough room, in our community for people that enjoy playing Anniversary or G40 or BBR or 36. This game is not designed to take away from those communities at all, and I actually think this game plays quite a bit different. There is victory cities in this game, but different than BBR, and this game is a 2-player game, separate than 39, and also it doesn't have as much political stuff happening. So it's quite a bit different. But this game really is a complex game. It's not probably, if somebody is new to the sort of Axis and Allies world, probably an introduction to an anniversary or a game that's easier to understand the basic concepts rather than just jumping straight into 39, because it's G40 on with a lot more rules, a lot more stuff happening, a lot more units. Political situations quite a bit different, and also I think to play this game you have to have a real appreciation for World War II history, but also history of the actual specific units. And some of the stuff we're doing now is with the units we're bringing into the game. We've actually decided to call, for example, units by their specific name. So rather than call something a heavy bomber, which it is, it has that notation, but it's a B-29, for example. So there's a lot of history, and there's always that debate. How much history do you have in a game like this, and how much is it playable, or is it too much? Is it a logjam of stuff that we can't play? So hopefully we found a right balance, but we really try to get as much historical accuracy into this game. So what's different about this game from the original? I guess to start off, we discussed the Calcutta factory situation yesterday, and also the situation in Siam. Like Siam can now no longer have a major factory. And one of the differences in this game in comparison to maybe Global 40 is you're not allowed to build complexes that are not on your original territory. So, the whole Middle Earth strategy that General Hand Grenade had sort of kindly shared with us, which I've watched hundreds of times myself to try and learn, does not exist because you cannot build a factory in Iraq or Iran. So how do you get units everywhere? Well, holding on to the Middle Earth with everything you can as the Allied players is a strategy you have to be able to do, because you cannot build factories, all over the map, so to speak. Now you can take if you take over a major factory of an opposing nation, it does reduce to a minor, so you can produce units there, but now there's a scorched earth. So when you're at war, you can actually destroy any of your facilities. So that is probably not a scenario you can count on every game. So that's one of the changes we've made. I was going to look down at my notes here. Also, the situation with the Dutch fleet in the Pacific. Holland used to have an income of this game. I think it was 18 IPCs. I can't remember. But anyways, if Germany let them collect their income on turn 1, then I took it on turn 2, took all their money, and then also the annexation, the rolling for all the Dutch ships. So now the Dutch ships are no longer rolled for; they are now annexed, because that was a pro-Allied nation, and we felt that historical accuracy, the Dutch boats in the Pacific they fought. So we didn't want them to be a situation where when France goes Vichy, how all the boats are rolled for, and for those who don't know, it either becomes pro-Axis, pro-Allied, or it gets scuttled. One of those options. So we changed that for this version. We also changed the ratio of how many submarines a destroyer can detect. We felt that in the Atlantic battle, we wanted to make it, I guess, a bit more of a fair fight for the Allies, and also all across the board. So a submarine now, or a destroyer, can now detect 2 submarines, not 1. And also there's some new units in the game that also have that sub-detecting ability, and those are the Commonwealth corvettes and the U.S. sub-detecting ship. They can also detect submarines as well. So, and then Germany also has combined arms, 2 submarines paired together, attack at +1, and they're also cheaper to buy. And they can also purchase now coastal submarines. So we still want to keep that battle going, but we just felt it needed a little bit of tweaking. Sorry, I've got my glasses on here, having trouble. Oh, Italy. So in terms of victory cities, if the Allies captured any of Rome, Berlin, or Tokyo, it was an Allied victory, and that was obviously holding the city for 1 complete turn. So what we've decided to do was, I think most of us were in agreement that It was really Rome and Tokyo. If those two cities were captured, that was a victory. So what do we do with Italy? Obviously it's still an important territory, and it's not easy to take if the Italy in the European Axis are doing their, paying attention. But historically, is what happened to Italy is Italy ended up basically, part of Italy ended up joining the Axis, and part of the Italy ended up fighting with the Allies. So if Rome is captured by the Allies now, a similar scenario where you roll for units occurs. And for the remainder of the game, you'll either have National Republican Italian units or co-belligerent Italian units, which would obviously be aligned with the Allies. So that's historically accurate, and we thought that was a cool element to bring into the game. Now, in case some of you are wondering, talking about all these new units in the game, like is this what's going to happen, and is this going to break the game? And Kurt was very specific when we were doing all this, was that, for example, in some games, if you roll a tech and you get a heavy bomber or a jet fighter, can this be game breaking? If there's some unit that's all of a sudden going to come in and just totally dominate, and you're not going to buy the regular unit anymore. So when we had the whole concept of bringing these new units into the game, first, did the nation actually have it? Like, Japan didn't have heavy armor in World War II, so, or at least not any significant number, so they don't have the option of purchasing any heavy armor, whereas Germany obviously had the Tiger tank, so they did, right? And for the Allies, they sort of did, but later on in the war, with the US having the Pershing, and obviously the British having the Comet tank and the Firefly, and the Churchill tank. And these units in the game are actually called, it's not called a heavy tank, it's not called a medium or light, although it does have that designation. It's actually referred to as a Sherman Firefly. And when we talked about having these units in the game in terms of not making it game breaking, the idea was they need to come in the game at a certain point, not, obviously in the beginning for some units, but then also there needs to be a limit on how many you purchase and how many per turn. So there is some restrictions on the new units that are being introduced to the game. For example, the US can purchase a heavy bomber or a super heavy bomber, which is the B-29 Super Fortress, but I think they can only purchase 3 of them in gameplay at one time, which means if they have 3 in gameplay, currently they can't purchase any more that turn. If they happen to lose one that turn, they can purchase another one the following turn, but they cannot have more than 3 in gameplay. So we thought that was going to bring some balance to the game, but also, like when I did a lot of research in terms of when we talked about, a naval fighter versus all these different units, and I really wanted to paint a clear picture that, what were they? What was the actual unit that was used? And was this mass produced? Was it a little bit? What was the attack value? And one of the flavors from the original 39, which I really liked, was that I think Japan, because they didn't have a lot of resources for them to purchase armor, and same with Italy, it was a little bit more expensive, and they attacked and defended it a little bit less. So that element actually still exists in the game, and maybe a little bit more. For example, when I was doing my research, I learned that the Zeros, the Japanese Zero fighter, actually had an extra range of movement. So we've factored that in. The Zero fighter now has a movement of +1. So instead of going 4 spaces like a normal fighter, it can go 5 to reflect that. So, and then some units cost a little bit more for certain nations. I think submarines for the UK are still a little bit more expensive. Because I'm talking about Japanese fighter now, so when I'm talking about specific units, the naval fighter for the Japan is obviously the Zero. We all know what that is, right? But what was the more of the veteran fighter? What was the veteran fighter, and what was the regular fighter? So I've given them distinct names now. So I'm just gonna pan the camera over and show you. And I've painted them all up. I think you can see them there. Yep. So the orange fighter, that's an Oscar. And the white fighter, that's a Zero, and the other one is the KI-27. So anyways, those are the specific units just to point out that what the changes are. There is also some new facilities. I think we mentioned one of them yesterday, which was the armored train. And there's only actually two nations that can purchase the armored train, and that is Germany and Russia. We felt with the ability to move units around and the factory situation, we had to offer nations more ability to move units quickly across the board. So that was historically accurate, and I'm not going to talk about this very specifics, but I'm just going to pan the camera over, and these are some of the original. This is obviously a major factory, a minor factory, air base, naval base, and that's a fortification. Well, some of the new facilities we've got introduced in the game are obviously the military base, a colonial factory, a coastal gun. This is the Russian armored train. That's the German. Some radar towers. So there is some new facilities that are going to be introduced into the game, and hopefully, hopefully you guys like what we've done. I'm just trying to think. I've drawn a blank. See, my dad was right. He was right all along. And now I'm making fun of myself. But one of the other ways, one of the other rules that we've changed is how I think previously the bombers could substitute as a air transport or a bomber. In this game, the air transports are the only units that can move units, and they're limited on the amount of air transports you can have, and they can only move one unit. So again, not a game-breaking thing, but historically accurate, because some units obviously did move around via air transport. One actually facility that I forgot to mention, I just saw it here, I'm going to point out, but that's a pillbox. So different than the regular fortification, this is a Japanese specific unit, and its purpose is actually I think to go on island territories. And what that's going to do is when the Allies attack it, it's going to automatically kill one of the attacking ground forces if there is a pillbox present. So that's one of the things we've added. And talking about getting units quickly across the board, we've all heard the term Tokyo Express. What does this really mean? I used to think, whenever I purchase transports, early in the game as Japan, my opponent would always say, or vice versa, Tokyo Express coming. Well, what that actually means was Japan's ability to load men and material on other ships that were not transports to move them as quickly as possible across the Pacific Ocean, which actually surprised the Allies. So we are now, Japan has a special ability to two destroyers paired together can move one infantry as a non-combat movement. And that is called, and it actually happened. So it's called the Tokyo Express. So that is an ability now that Japan will have. And also, and this, I have to give Hambone credit for this, because Germany has no factories that can produce units in the Mediterranean. So how does Rommel get his forces to Africa? In that scenario, well, in some games, it's very difficult for Germany to go through Gibraltar and go that which they still can. They still have that option. But how did Rommel get his forces all the way to North Africa? And well, he actually used, cargo ships. He used some Italian units. So Hambone had an idea that that's what historically was. So let's make that a thing. And so now the Germans can basically loan 2 transports per round to basically they become part of the Kriegsmarine for that round, and they can move units from Europe all the way to Africa if they so choose. And historically, that's how it happened, and so we're happy to add that element in the game. I do plan on doing quite a few tutorial videos going over. I'm going to pick a nation, for example, whether it's Japan, and line up all their units on the board. What's new, what's old, what do they do? and also going over some strategy. What are the differences now between the sneak attack for Japan, and just giving a real overview, kind of similar what other people have done with BBR and the Global War 36, some real player aids. So people that are coming into the game, sometimes you physically need to see stuff outside of the rule book to understand it. It's very challenging sometimes to portray absolutely everything in a rule book. So hopefully that will help you guys understand the game a little bit better. And I think what time is it? Just gonna check the time. Got a couple minutes left. So gonna pan over here at some of the other new units that I've mentioned that are gonna be in the game. And this is a Chinese, well, it's an American lend-lease to China, but that's a Stuart tank. So they can lend-lease 2 armor per game to China. This is a Canadian Corvette. That's a Canadian cavalry. So every nation now has the ability to purchase up to 3 cavalry in gameplay per turn. It's obviously a Churchill tank. That's a B-29. That's an Me-262 jet fighter, which only the Germans can have jet fighters in this game. They can also have V-1 or V-2 rockets, the only nation. So lots of fun historical stuff that I'm excited to share with you guys. The setup, there has been a few tweaks. And when this does come out, and I see recently, version 4 of 36 is coming out, there's going to be similar game aids that are coming out for 39 that are going to show you. These are all the units that are in the game. This is the recommended piece buy, and this is the direct link if you want to purchase them. So it's not going to be a box game that everybody can just, to buy all the pieces, but you're going to be able to purchase maybe different packages similar to how Midway came out, where it's an Admiral package or this package or that package, a smaller one. Whether you want the rule book and the setup charts, or if you want some of the special acrylics and all the other stuff that's going to come out along with some of the specialized units. And some of them are actually still in development, so I don't actually have all of them yet. And how I've adjusted is either if it's an airborne unit, I have a marker sometimes for an airborne unit. Sometimes you can see with the Japanese fighters, I painted them some distinct colors so they're separate from each other. And I kind of feel that this is going to be something that it's going to be up to each person to have their individual choice. But the option is going to be there for them to have the actual specific sculpt for the specific nation, to purchase and available to buy. And it's going to be easy for them to sort of distinguish what's what. So that's all I got for today. Thank you, folks. And Detroit, my good friend Detroit, he gave me some advice. He's like, at the end of the video, you should say something, a saying that, whatever it is. So I thought I'd a little bit different from that, but something a little bit motivational. And I have a sports background in hockey and lacrosse and cycling. And I used to coach and play as well. So one of the cliches I used to hear all the time coaching was, you cannot eat an elephant. And this is a reference to, how much work it is to do something that's very challenging in your life. You cannot eat an elephant in one day. Like it's physically impossible to eat an elephant in one day. But if you have one bite of the elephant every day, eventually you're going to be able to eat the whole thing. And taking on this project, and even if you don't even realize you're going to have to eat the elephant, because I didn't realize I was going to have to, how much work this game was going to be, but anything is possible. Any task or any job or anything you want to do in your life, it's all possible. It can be an elephant. Don't think of it that way. Just think of it as one bite at a time. And wish you guys all the best. And thank you for following along. I will be posting some more videos soon. There's actually, I feel like I could spend 6 hours talking about this game, but I'm going to try and break it up in categories. And hopefully today I was able to provide a little bit more light for you guys on what the 39 is going to be all about. So thank you for watching, folks, and stay tuned.